Greetings, my lovelies. This is Blake here, and welcome to my review of WWE's Money in the Bank 2015. So, I got back into wrestling late 2013 and had missed the creation of the Money in the Bank contract ladder match. But once the network came out, I went through all the Money in the Bank pay-per-views and fell in love with the concept. For one, it's just a really cool idea, but it also adds a new level of suspense to subsequent World Heavyweight Championship matches while giving a certain amount of prestige to the winner, much like how King of the Ring used to. But generally, they just usually choose the right performers to put in these matches, and the quality of the ladder matches has generally been very high. I can't think of a single dud amongst them off the top of my head. And I thought last year's Money in the Bank contract match, well, both of them were really good, even if there were some problems I had with the storylines. So I was really looking forward to this year's Money in the Bank just for that alone. However, I kind of feel like Seth Rollins burned me out on the Money in the Bank contract. It has nothing to do with him or how he has been booked. Well, kind of, but it seems like most of the Money in the Bank contract winners, that wasn't an immediate push to the main event scene. Damien Sandow, for example, I don't think ever became the number one or two guy, and once he failed to cash in his contract, he was more or less demoted to comedy jobber. But in the case of Seth Rollins, after he won, within a few months, he had become the main antagonist of the WWE. Randy Orton had more or less kind of stepped down in that role, and you could argue that Brock Lesnar was the true villain, but Brock Lesnar, even though he got the belt, he wasn't on TV enough. He defended his championship very little, so Seth Rollins was forced to kind of step up and play the role of the main bad guy until Brock Lesnar would return. And he made sure to rub that stupid briefcase in our faces almost on a nightly basis. And the fact that he was Mr. Money in the Bank, it was a combination of him playing the most important role in the company at that time, having it for the length of time that he did, and always reminding us that he had it, that just sort of exhausted me on Money in the Bank. And I realized that he cashed it in in WrestleMania, and that was a big event. That was a great moment. However, we also only get a few months where we could take a break off of the Money in the Bank contract before it comes back. And I kind of wish that maybe they should do that every other year instead of every year, just to keep it fresh, so it doesn't become stale like Elimination Chamber kind of has. But we'll just have to see. Sheamus winning kind of threw me off, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I don't see Sheamus stepping up to be the main villain, so the contract itself will probably be safe in the mid-card until he chooses to cash it in. So maybe that's enough, but we'll have to see. So as for the pay-per-view itself, let me bring up my notes. I was pretty disappointed. For the most part, I was left feeling unsatisfied. I thought the pacing was very awkward. But another reason why I think Money in the Bank 2015 misfired, for me anyway, is there's just too many pay-per-views in too short amount of time. We've had 3 in 6 weeks. There's just no reason for that. I think they should have waited another year before bringing back Elimination Chamber, and that would have allowed more time for these storylines to develop, for them to breathe, to give us a stronger payoff to the endings or beginnings of these feuds. So let's begin with the pre-show. R-Truth versus Barrett. Fuck me, this pissed me off. The quality of the match was average, something you'd easily see on Raw. Even though I am a big Barrett mark, I will admit that he more or less seems to wrestle the same match every time he gets in the ring. The difference between him and R-Truth, though, is Barrett wrestles a good match every time, even if it is the same match. Whereas Truth, he's kind of just lost all impact in the ring. He has his moments where he could show off a cool technique, and he's fairly athletic when he wants to be, but his moveset for the most part has gotten stale. His personality has upstaged his in-ring abilities, and R-Truth can be very funny. In fact, the Raw before Money in the Bank, he came out and started cutting a promo about how he was going to win the Money in the Bank ladder match, only for Kane to remind him that he wasn't in it. Just the reactions were great. It was very funny. The audience was laughing pretty loudly, and you don't really see that very often, or I should say, hear that very often. So he does have some really good comedic timing when used properly, but I don't like it when he gets pushed anymore, because when R-Truth wins, it never really feels like he's winning. As much as it feels like his enemy is losing. I very rarely feel like R-Truth is moving up as much as he's bringing somebody down. And even in this match, he doesn't so much defeat Barrett as much as he steals the victory, and afterwards he runs away when Barrett confronts him again. So that makes Barrett look bad instead of making Truth look good. And god damn it, Barrett's the king of the ring. Are they trying to just bury the idea altogether? Maybe that is the goal. Maybe WWE just wanted to shut up everybody who wanted to see a return for King of the Ring, and therefore are now showing that it is a useless title. If you win, it's probably by a fluke, because you're going to get defeated every time afterwards. And Truth, man, that is low for the poor King, because Truth probably has been presented as arguably the weakest of the low card jobbers, or maybe even he's a mid card jobber. He does not win very often, and yet he's going over Barrett multiple times. So that sucked. The ladder match was first, and that confused me, because usually these are the high points of the pay-per-view, and therefore wouldn't that make every subsequent match look inferior in comparison? But oddly, it's almost as if they predicted this, so told all the performers not to steal the show, because this was a very underwhelming Money in the Bank contract match. One of the issues I had with it was they'd have everybody except maybe two people get knocked out of the ring while these two people fight. So, for example, you'd have Kofi Kingston and Sheamus squaring off in the ring, clashing, and everybody else is outside of the ring. Well, what are they doing? Was just being tossed out enough to knock them unconscious? Are they just resting there? Are they fighting? The camera isn't really showing what they are doing, so it, for the most part, has just become a one-on-one match until somebody else gets knocked out of the ring and another performer replaces them. That is kind of boring. I guess I'll talk about the various storylines and the role they played in this match. So, you had Adrian Neville. A good choice to have him here, even though he hasn't been involved in any real angle going into this. He defeated Bo Dallas, big whoop. However, I do agree that he should be in this match. And he does a good job, except I sort of realized Neville is very inexperienced when it comes to ladder, or I should say Money in the Bank matches. I don't know about his experience with ladder matches. But even though he's incredibly athletic, arguably the most athletic performer on the roster, at least in his own way, he does things that you won't see anybody else even be capable of doing. However, he doesn't feel as comfortable here compared to Ziggler and Kofi Kingston, who have a lot more experience in these kinds of matches, and they can do a lot more stuff with the ladder that just feels more exciting. Neville has some really good spots, but for the most part, they're the type of spots that you'd see in any other Neville match. He did take an awesome RKO, though. That was pretty cool. Ziggler and Kofi Kingston, they play their roles very comfortably. I hate Ziggler's storyline involving Lana and Rusev. It just all around is terrible to me. The only good thing about it is they finally made Rusev the most unsympathetic party in this love triangle. He just is acting straight up like the asshole, possessive, abusive ex-boyfriend. And I have begun to really dislike him, but in a way that I'm supposed to. But otherwise, I just hate this storyline. So I can give a shit about Ziggler right now. Kofi Kingston, part of New Day. I was thinking that New Day would get involved more than they ultimately did, but I knew they'd get involved in some capacity, and that was the right thing to do. Kofi always looks good in these matches, and this was no exception. I kind of feel, though, of all the New Day members, Kofi is the least interesting in terms of his personality. He doesn't seem quite as comfortable in the heel role as Biggie and Xavier Woods, but if any of them needed to be in this match, it was probably him. So no complaints there. A lot of people kind of wished Kofi would win, and I kind of did too. It would have been a very interesting dynamic. Plus, if the New Day also had Money in the Bank for some reason. Plus, I really do feel like Kofi needs to win one of these matches eventually, considering how much he brings to these kinds of matches. Fuck, who else is there? Randy Orton feels very irrelevant right now. Like, when Big Show returned after being gone for like a month, it was met with a certain amount of fanfare. Like, you did feel it was kind of important that he was back. With Randy Orton, once he returned, he was just there. And it was even stranger because didn't Triple H put him at the back of the line? And whereas Roman Reigns at least had to earn his opportunity to get into this match, they just let Randy Orton back in. That seems like a contradiction, but whatever. But otherwise, like, Randy Orton is there, but he just kind of feels like he's been discarded. Like, he's just securely in the mid-card, doesn't cut any promos. He's having a quasi-feud with Sheamus, but it's kind of sad that even though they're presenting him as a strong, force, you never really felt like he had any chance of winning. But yeah, he does good as he usually does. Kane's presence. One of my main issues with this Money in the Bank match is that there wasn't really any major storyline going into it. Like, last year you had Rollins versus Ambrose, and that was the primary anchor of that Money in the Bank match. Or even in the main event ladder match, it was Roman Reigns defying the Authority, which created a story problem when Cena ultimately won, even though that was probably the right choice at the time. And then previously you had, I think it was Sandow versus Cody Rhodes, or the tension that kind of developed between them. Here, there wasn't really any main storyline going into this match. Kind of one between Sheamus and Randy Orton, but that seemed just sort of irrelevant. It honestly only seemed like there was any tension because of this upcoming match. Kane versus Roman Reigns could have been that feud, but Kane seemed more preoccupied with screwing or messing with Rollins. Even Roman Reigns seemed more preoccupied with messing with Rollins. So even though there was some tension between them, it wasn't enough to carry the drama of this match. Kane, it's hard to take Kane seriously anymore, but he doesn't do a great job here. He sold a few moves very awkwardly, and I respect Kane. I like Kane, but I don't know. They need to turn him face. They need to do something that could recapture that fire. He's just kind of a heat vacuum right now. Um, who else is there? Oh yeah, well, Sheamus and Roman Reigns. Everybody thought Roman Reigns would win. I thought Roman Reigns would win. I thought Roman Reigns should win. And much to my surprise, Bray Wyatt comes out and sabotages Roman Reigns' chance. Now, the one issue I have with Roman Reigns right now is that he's acting too passive, too laid back, when he should be intense and focused. I want to see Roman Reigns, how he acted building up to the last Money in the Bank, where he is kind of scary and he's almost an anti-hero, but you love him for it. Now he's just too smiley and too easygoing, and that kind of, I think, killed some of his momentum going into this. However, Bray Wyatt versus Roman Reigns, there was a time when I thought these guys could have been like their ultimate rivals, just as, Austin had The Rock, Shawn Michaels had Bret Hart, Dean Ambrose has Seth Rollins, John Cena had Randy Orton, and I thought Bray and Roman Reigns could have been that duo just because of when the Shield and the Wyatt family clashed. Whenever they got in the ring with each other, that's when fans went totally batshit insane. And they had a certain chemistry with each other without actually fighting. The presence, how their presence would clash. This could have been a really compelling feud, but it wasn't the time for it. Both men desperately need victories. Bray Wyatt constantly gets built up only to be brought down again, and when he's brought down, he's brought down hard. He lost to Roman Reigns after Roman Reigns had already fought Mark Henry and Bad News Barrett that same night. How can I take a feud between these guys seriously now? That just seems like a really stupid idea. Neither man is going into this program with a significant amount of momentum. WWE is telling us that they are both losers when they should be booked as monsters. So I have no investment right now in their feud. It would have been funnier if Bray Wyatt took the case. And then there'd be like all this discussion as to whether, he's the real winner because, on one hand he did get the briefcase, but he also wasn't really in the match, so they could have done a whole lot of things there. Instead, they gave it to Sheamus, which, an interesting decision. It comes down to their long-term plans for him. I think Sheamus makes a pretty good heel, but at the same time, he doesn't feel like a hot heel right now. So I'm not sure. It's a shocking twist, and it depends just where they go with it. Otherwise, Sheamus does fine as he always does. But as a whole, I didn't like the match because I just felt they kind of underutilized the majority of the talents involved. And next we had Nikki versus Paige. Who cares? This feud was shit. I criticized them having the Bellas turn face, and then they turned heel, and then just too fast for no reason. The whole storyline is Paige is trying to overthrow the Bellas, which is weird because, do the Bellas even have a real connection with the Authority right now? I honestly do feel like the Bellas are only on top because they are the most skilled people on the roster in regards to the storyline, not in regards to their real life talent. But WWE is telling me that they worked to get where they were, and they have earned their place at the top. So it's not like with Rollins, who's sort of being babied by the Authority, where that would make sense if the roster turned on him. But okay, at least it's something. It could develop into an interesting storyline. But otherwise, I didn't care about this feud. I thought it sucked. I'm not really all that interested in Paige right now, even though she is, a very talented performer. She needs to seriously stop saying, "This is my house." She says it every 2 minutes, and I've gotten tired of it. And I think that Nikki's face turn hurt what could have been a cool storyline as well, just because the way the Divas division is playing out, it's just so chaotic and just so bad that it's hard to really build up any momentum. When Nikki loses the belt, it should be a major, major moment for whoever topples her. But I just don't feel like it would be right now, because nobody seems to really care. The match itself was very, very subpar. Nikki's submission moves always look so bad to me. Her power moves, on the other hand, are pretty good. But, like, whenever she tries to put in a submission hold, it always just looks awkward. I think the problem with this matchup is I don't believe both women have very good chemistry with each other. They're both powerhouse wrestlers, and they need somebody different. Whether it's Natalya, who's more of a technical submission wrestler, or not there anymore, AJ Lee, who is much faster, almost a cruiserweight. Although she combined a cruiserweight style with a technical style, so anything different, but I just don't think they gel well together. Naomi could become an interesting contrast to either Nikki or Paige, but her moveset needs serious reevaluation. But it was a crappy match with a horrid finish, the Dusty finish. I should have known they were going to do this. I personally don't think it's a great tribute to somebody who... The Dusty finish was not a good contribution from Dusty to the wrestling industry. And that seems like a weird thing they'd want to acknowledge from him, but it was shit. I knew it would be shit, and it did not disappoint me. So, good job. Speaking of which, the Dusty Rhodes tribute, very moving, very effective. I enjoyed that quite a bit. I just figured I'd throw that out there. Big Show versus Ryback. So I was thinking that this would be a triple threat match involving The Miz. I'm glad it wasn't, but I still think this was not booked very well. In terms of the build-up, I thought it was strange at first that they'd give The Miz a title shot. I was thinking that it should be Sheamus in that role just because they were the last two guys in the Elimination Chamber match, or at least anybody from the Elimination Chamber match. Instead, they throw in Miz for absolutely no reason. But then Big Show gets involved, and I'm thinking, I love the Big Show, but I don't think he and Ryback would have that very good of chemistry. But then again, I could be surprised since Roman Reigns versus Big Show ended up being a surprisingly good match, and I didn't think they had any chemistry together either. But then I will admit that Miz TV segment where all three guys were out there, that was actually very well done. All three men had their chance to shine where they showed off, the important aspects of their characters, and I enjoyed their banter. I thought it was weird that Ryback came out on top, especially as he got Big Show in a shell shock, which you don't see very often. Shell shock is a very difficult move to pull off on a big guy like him, so that's very impressive, but it seems like that should be reserved for the match. I think they should have had either Miz... Actually, I would have been cool if they somehow had Miz come out on top. But then again, at the time, I was thinking it would be a three-way match. Instead, they ended up going Big Show versus Ryback, so I think maybe Big Show should have been the one to do it. But if I had any... if I could choose how this booking went, I would have had this match be Ryback versus The Miz, and had Ryback go over The Miz, therefore giving some credibility to his title reign. I don't think it's smart to have his first title defense end in a disqualification, or have it be a three-way match because there's too much randomness there. You want to make Ryback a credible champion, have him win title matches, at least start off with a one-on-one match. So I will know that, Ryback is better than The Miz or The Big Show. The Big Show should have been put into a separate feud where he went over a credible mid-card face performer, maybe Jack Swagger, that could have given him some airtime. Otherwise, sort of like how, Big Show, he went over Rowan, and that kind of built him up for his next feud. The Big Show is the kind of guy I think he should never lose to somebody WWE doesn't have long-term plans for. And that will make victories over him seem more meaningful. But instead they had Big Show versus Ryback, and surprisingly, it was pretty good at first. Much more fast-paced than I would have expected. I was wondering if they were going to have Ryback squash the Big Show, because, Ryback went out, guns blazing. He was kicking the crap out of Big Show, and usually whoever fights the Big Show is, fighting more as the underdog. So that was interesting. But then Big Show, he started fighting back, and it was interesting seeing them sort of test each other. You really felt like this match was very competitive. And it was implied that Big Show might win, which I did not like at all, because now I'm beginning to wonder if Ryback is really deserving of this belt. But then The Miz got involved and pissed me off, because I don't like it when pay-per-views end this way. This is something they should have done on Raw. So I would have actually rather this been a three-way match, even though I don't think that would have been the best idea either, if Ryback came out on top cleanly, in a way that would make me think, okay, well, he's building himself up as a real champion. Now it's just like, I don't know. It's an unsatisfying way to end this match, and you could tell, like, even Ryback was like, God fucking damn it. Nobody seemed really thrilled by it. The match, the fans were irritated. It was a shame, because, like I said, the match had started off much better than I was expecting. So that was bullshit. They need to give Ryback a real victory. And they should not have him drop the belt soon. They need to have a long intercontinental title reign in order to give some credibility back to the belt, especially as this is Ryback's first belt, I believe. So, unless WWE is going to pull the plug on him, they need to give him really good victories, and they need to have that belt on him for a while. Oh yes, John Cena versus Kevin Owens. So, in a way, this was actually a lot better than the last match. With their last match, which is a very good match, it started off kind of awkward, but they got used to each other's styles and, developed some really great chemistry together. Here, I thought it started off much stronger than their first match. They were much more ready to fight each other. Told a solid story, even though John Cena was acting kind of heelish in parts. That was really weird. And then it got better and better, and it became great and intense. And then I kind of realized that in a lot of ways this was almost the exact same match as their first one, except the changes I really was not liking. I think what surprised me with their first match was Kevin Owens did a lot of stuff I wouldn't have expected him to be able to do. We saw a lot of that same stuff here. There was nothing really new about this matchup, even though it was still just as good as their other one. But they started kicking out of each other's finishers way too much. And I don't really like that. It's like they make a big deal of him kicking out of the Attitude Adjustment. Well, everybody kicks out of the Attitude Adjustment these days. But you don't see too many people kick out of his pop-up power bomb. And so because Cena did that, I feel like they devalued Kevin Owens' finisher. Whereas Cena's finisher has been devalued for a long time. And there's just too many kickouts, but the ending, it was predictable. I knew Cena would win, and once he kind of offered to shake hands with Kevin Owens, I knew that Kevin Owens would beat him up, and it made Cena look like an idiot. And the way, I didn't think Cena's psychology was very great there either, because like Cena, when he offers to shake his hand, it felt more like Cena was only doing that because he didn't want another match. I don't think that was the intention, but just what I read from his facial expressions, I don't mind Cena winning as much as a lot of people did, even though obviously that would have done a lot for Kevin Owens. Cena's one of those guys, everybody wants to see everybody go over Cena, and you just can't do that. Cena always should be consistently the most dangerous performer on the roster. He's led this company for too long. It wouldn't make sense for him to start putting over seemingly everybody. But yeah, I can go either way. It was overall, a very fun match, but one that, in retrospect, I started poking a lot of holes in, and that's never a good thing. And what made this match even worse or better in retrospect was that it was so intense to the point of being exhausting. After this, the show could have ended, and I would have been like, okay. Instead, it had 2 more matches to go, and I was just like, okay, man, I'm kind of tired. And I actually fell asleep before the tag team match even got started. I watched it just this morning before doing this video. But that wariness I felt throughout the rest of this pay-per-view. So that's what I mean when the pacing was kind of off. Probably not the best place to put this. I think the tag team match should have been before Cena vs. Owens. And maybe, they should have had Cena vs. Owens happen right before the main event. And even that would have presented its own problems. But the tag team match itself, Hulu does not like the tag team division very much, so they often cut out the storyline parts of this feud. So I don't know what they had done with this program. I feel like I wanted to see more banter, more promo time between New Day and Primetime Players, because they are both very funny teams. And I think there could be some really good chemistry there. I enjoyed the Primetime Players segments. I thought the part where they kind of allude to Darren Young being gay was pretty amusing, but in a tasteful way that just felt natural, for that sketch. But once again, I just want to see more back and forth, because when they were building up to the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view and they were kind of dueling words at commentary, they had really good chemistry, and I wanted to see more of that. So that was a little disappointing. But once again, I don't know if that's Hulu's problem or if WWE just hasn't really given a whole lot of room for these guys to, perform together. If the match itself was fine, once again, not a good place to put right after Cena versus Owens. I guess this was treated as the cool down match when it could have been more. Nothing about it really stood out. Darren Young played the babyface in peril, and he played it well. Titus, once he got in, he was the beast, and that's still kind of weird to me considering it wasn't that long ago that he was jobbing really hard. But I see that enough to where it's not that big of a deal. Big E was the strong man for the heel team, and Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods has a really fun personality, and New Day would not work without him. But I've yet to really be blown away by anything he's done in the ring. Kofi has the high-flying spots, Big E has the strongman spots, and Xavier Woods is, I guess, just the mouth. That's really his greatest function, his real contribution to the New Day. But the match is fine. Nothing really amazing. I was surprised that the Primetime Players won. That just threw me off. I was expecting the New Day to get the victory, because it seems like there's more interest in the New Day than Primetime Players right now. Like, the audiences will cheer for Primetime Players, but it's really the New Day they're paying attention to. So I don't know. We'll see where that goes in the future. Then we had the main event. Let me see how long this video has gone. All right, 30 minutes, not too bad for a wrestling vlog. Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose. Story-wise, there was some good stuff here. I liked how, Seth Rollins was finally growing a pair and trying to set out on his own. And the Authority was supporting that, even when you could tell that Rollins wasn't really sure that was thrilling him. Like, he says he could do it all on his own, but now that he's on his own, he's kind of insecure and afraid. It's good because it really feels like he's not the champion as much as the Authority itself is the champion. However, it was just too obvious that Rollins was going to win. At least their previous match had kind of an unpredictable finish. But here, we knew that Rollins was going to come out on top, and WWE really telegraphed that by having Ambrose come out on top in all of their interactions. Usually, when that happens, that means the person who has been on the receiving end of whatever beatdown is going to win. Ambrose stealing the belt was kind of funny, but still, nothing amazing. And I didn't like when J&J Security went over Rollins, although that's something I could live with. It did play a part within this storyline, and the whole thing is that, yeah, Rollins has been carried by the Authority, but now he has finally shown he can do it himself. It's a bit late considering next month he's next month he's apparently going to be taking on Brock Lesnar, and I do not see how he can stand a chance against Lesnar. But in concept, it's fine, even though the drama is very much lacking compared to their first feud last year. I, for some reason, was bored out of my mind during this match. And at first I was thinking it was just because Cena vs. Owens was too intense. And that just exhausted me to the point where, I was fighting off sleep during this matchup. Whereas I slept entirely throughout the tag team match. But much like how I watched the tag team match this morning, I did the same for Ambrose vs. Rollins, and I was still kind of bored. And I wasn't really sure why, because Rollins and Ambrose, they have really good chemistry together. There were enough exciting spots, a lot of dangerous moments. They did tell a pretty good story where, Rollins was attacking Ambrose's leg, and Ambrose was doing a great job selling that. And yet, for whatever reason, I was not interested at all. Was it because I knew Rollins would win? I think that's part of that. Another part was I thought some of the spots were just too impractical. Like when Rollins is trying to get into the ring, or trying to get the ladder into the ring, and then Ambrose kind of climbs up on it. I was like, why would either man do this? All Rollins has to do is push the ladder, and Ambrose would kind of have wasted that trip and gotten himself hurt in the process. Or all Rollins would have to do is hit Ambrose and knock him off the ladder, but he doesn't for whatever reason. And wouldn't Ambrose want Rollins to get the ladder in the ring, and then while he's setting it, then Ambrose could attack him? Just a few moments like that where I was just challenging the logic here, and that's never good in a wrestling match. I think, though, a lot of it was just a very awkwardly paced match. It was, for one, surprisingly long. I believed it went somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes, which I'd generally be fine with, except once again, following that Owens vs. Cena match, it's just going to be hard to keep me invested after that. But there was a lot of downtime where, it would start off very fast-paced, they'd show off some spots, and then there'd be like some downtime where nothing seems to happen, and then it would go back to the spots, and more downtime, and then it'll go back to the spots, and it'll finally reach the conclusion. And I don't like that kind of on and off pacing. I think a match should have a steadier build, or maybe start off strong, slow down, pace yourself, and then have a very exciting finale. Well, I didn't find the finale of this to be very exciting. I thought it was rather anticlimactic. The way it ended. I agree with the ending. I kind of liked the idea of Roman Reigns winning and then cashing in on Ambrose after Ambrose wins, or maybe, if Rollins wins, that he could cash in on Rollins. I think that would have been a more bombastic finale that I think I would have enjoyed more, but since they didn't go that route in the Money in the Bank match, I knew that wasn't going to occur, and I would have been very confused if Sheamus got the World Heavyweight Championship this quickly. So I just didn't like how this match flowed. Even though a lot of people did. A lot of people thought it was a good, if not exceptional match. But I was just like, is it over yet? And it didn't seem to happen. So just as a whole, I did not care for this pay-per-view. Even though there were some good matches here, Owens vs. Cena is worth watching. everything else, I'm just sort of kind of like, I can't really say this was the best matchup between Rollins and Ambrose. Um, primetime players versus New Day was, it was acceptable, but nothing exceptional. Big Show versus Ryback had a fuck you ending. The Divas match sucked. The ladder match was, the Money in the Bank match itself was underwhelming. There's been so many more exceptional Money in the Bank ladder matches. I'd say that this was arguably the weakest one. But then again, I'd have to look and see what others there were, because I just might be forgetting other inferior Money in the Bank ladder matches. So just as a whole, I did not like this pay-per-view at all. So yeah, that's all I have to say. So follow me on Facebook so you could read my various reviews of Raw and SmackDown, and I have begun reviewing NXT shows, even though there's not a whole lot for me to say there. Either they're good or they're not as good, but I try. Follow me on Twitter. I am planning on getting Critiquing the Critics up in the next few weeks, because I am actually happy with where the script's going, and I plan on starting filming next week. So hopefully that won't take too long. And I've done written reviews of Jurassic World and Star Wars Episode 4, so read those as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall see you guys later.